we'd done a lot of touring. We had different management, which they were a bit too hands off. I'm giving you this is like we're going honest here with this stuff. Adam,
Hey, what's up, Keith? How are you?
I'm good. Just make sure is my audio working for you?
Yeah, sounds great.
I'm just going to prop you up because where I was going to film this, it was too noisy
Oh,
and
all
too
good.
cold. So I'm just going to find something a little bit more. Get a box here. Um, I'm not normally this disorganized, I promise.
Beautiful.
There we go. All right.
Looks beautiful.
Good, nice little red lamp. Yeah, it's beautiful. Where are you?
Nashville, Tennessee.
No, I like Nashville.
Yeah, come in here, actually.
We are. I've got a lot of
Yeah.
friends in Nashville too. A lot of my friends in LA ended up going to Nashville.
Yeah, I was from San Diego originally.
Yeah,
Moved to
there you go.
Nashville.
Case in point.
Exactly. Actually,
Yeah.
the first time I ever saw your band, and I met you once in 2015, I think.
Yeah.
2015, I worked at a radio station in San Diego. You guys played our festival,
Yes,
X Fest.
yes. I think we play X Fest twice. I think we did it twice. At
You
least
might have done it. You
maybe in
might have done it.
13 as well.
Did you do 13? I don't remember. I was there
Well,
for
look,
15
yeah.
and
Well,
14, but I don't know.
I remember doing a lot of with
91X.
91X. Yeah, we did a lot
Yeah.
of stuff with them over the years.
Yeah. And Robert DeLong was actually on the show too. Both of you.
Yeah, that might have been one of the first times, or if maybe the first time we saw Robert.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I remember then I saw you were touring with them. I'm like, I think they were on the same lineup that year. That's wild.
Yeah, we go way back. I mean, it was because he came out not long after we did. So
Yeah, exactly. You both had big songs on it on the station at the time, from what I remember.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
awesome. I'm so excited to chat with you. I know your album came out today. I love it. It's really, really, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
I think.
I'm really happy with it. Like it's strong front to back.
Oh yeah,
There's no filler on that track on that record.
100%. I think I've been listening to it all day. My favorite one, as I go through, like for the third time, I still think I keep landing on "When the Night Is Over." I think that's still my favorite one.
Do you know, that's funny because that keeps coming up.
Really?
Yeah, it keeps coming up. So many people in the last few days have been saying that "When the Night Is Over" is their favorite.
I love
And
it.
and the only problem with that is it's currently not in our set list, so we may have to add it to the set.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah,
The beauty of like putting the album out, right, though, and kind of seeing what people think.
it's a meritocracy. Like the better songs will put their hand up. It's yeah.
I think it's a great one, man. I mean, again, the whole album I think is awesome. Nobody loves like you is another great song. The vibe of the album too. It's it's obviously it all sounds like an Atlas Genius record, but there's different like vibes for each song. I feel like, but it all kind of goes together. In a
Yeah,
way,
well,
if
I
that
mean,
makes
and there's
I'm not
reason
very good at explaining that, but that
no, but you're right. You're right.
like
There are,
Animals is kind of a more of a poppier one.
yeah, and I think part of the reason of that is that we recorded it over the space of years, like because most of the record was done at the beginning of 2020. There were a couple of songs done before that,
Mhm.
and then the opening track, "Falling So Hard," was done the year after the pandemic. So it's done over a space like many years.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
like the
yeah, it's
best.
been
It's
a
like the best
while,
song
right?
for the last
Since
7 years for us.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say like it's been what 9 years since it
9 years. Yeah.
Wild. Well, I want to kind of get your origin story real fast, and then obviously dive in deeper into this new album. Born and raised in Australia, right?
Yep.
Southern Australia.
Yep. South Australia.
Yeah.
Correct.
Tell me about that a little bit.
So it's a beautiful part of the country. It's the city itself is 1.3 million, which is it's sizable. It's not huge.
That's pretty big. I
Um,
mean, that's like yeah.
yeah, but we actually grew up. Most of our childhood was in a coastal town, which was an hour south of that, which had a population of at the time around 10,000. So it's much smaller community. So quite isolated. And that growing up, that was pre-internet. So musical influences were really came down to what your parents had in their record collection, what your friends had, or what you were able to get at the CD store. Um, Totally different. And I've thought about this quite a bit over the years, where it was kind of this kind of cute, naive set of influences that now a kid has access to. If you're like a teenager getting into music now, you can literally hear anything you want from anywhere in the world instantly, right? So you could
Whenever
be
you want. It's
whatever you
so
want.
crazy.
And one of the great things about that for a kid now would be you could be finding, I really like this band in Uzbekistan, and I love this vocalist in Finland, and there's this girl in China who I really like this, and you can put it together in this really amazing melting pot. Whereas back then it was like, you'd love 10 records, you might have 15, but you'd learn to love like 10 of those. And
Mhm.
so and it just is what it is. But yeah, it was a I look back now at the things that I remember as a kid, right? You'd buy a CD, and that was a commitment because you'd saved your
Oh,
money. And
man, it's like 20 bucks.
I remember, I remember buying the Spin Doctors, right? Trying to love the Spin Doctors record because I'd heard Two Princes when I was a kid or something, and then
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, that was the worst, man. I think I I don't even want to throw bands under the bus, but it's like I remember being like, I cannot wait. Like, I love this song, I'm gonna buy the album, and then you're just like, what the fuck just happened
I
here?
mean, sometimes it was great, and other times it was that situation where you're like, okay, this song is nothing like the rest of the record.
Yeah, what am I doing?
What the hell is going on? But you would give it 20 or so spins. You're like, I've spent the $30 in Australia, that was
Yeah,
$30.
I've gotta love this. I gotta figure out a way to love this.
I'm
And if
going
it
to love
doesn't work,
this.
you're like, ah.
Yeah. And man, like it's
Should have
so,
bought a best of whoever.
yeah. And I guess that's the disadvantage potentially. Like if you grow up in a small town, I mean, there's pros and cons to it. So I'm not saying it's all downsides, but like say you grew up in New York in the 90s. Well, the Strokes were probably starting up down the road, and you got all these other bands, and before they got big, you could hear that sort of stuff much more readily. You're
Right.
like you're in the epicenter, but we were not in the epicenter, is what I'm saying. We may as well. We were like one step removed from like Antarctica.
But you do come from a musical household. Obviously, your brothers are in the band
Yep.
with you, but
Yep.
what your dad was also a guitar player, wasn't he? Or he played
Yeah.
in a band?
Yeah, and he doesn't claim to be a guitar player, but he played guitar as a kid, and he was in bands in high school. And then just after high school, he had a band that they just used to do shows around their town. But it wasn't so much that he played guitar a lot when we were growing up, which he did occasionally, which was very exciting. Even if your dad could play three chords, like, oh my God, my dad's
Yeah,
a rock star, right?
sure. And he was in a band.
He was in a band. I think what it was, what it really did is we'd hear about their band and they'd talk about, the heyday, which was probably 5 shows, the local country club or something, RSL. But it was he had three guitars lying around the house. That was an advantage. That was like it was there and it became tangible. It wasn't like a pipe dream. There was a guitar you could mess around on. And a couple of his best mates were also like madly into the Beatles and they were in his band. And so I think that just kind of like put in that seed. Like I guess if you grow up and your parents are doctors, like it's not that far. Oh, I could be a doctor or I could be a lawyer.
Right.
Because he'd done a little bit of it, I think that kind of instilled a bit of like, oh, we could do this,
Mhm. And were you guys, because sometimes it can go the other way though. It's like, oh, I don't want to do what my dad does, or I don't, I guess he wasn't like a career. He was gone all the time touring, but I mean,
Yeah.
but still in a sense, like, were you fascinated by like wanting to learn to play the guitar because it was sitting around, or like was that the
Yeah.
first instrument you learned?
It was the first instrument that I learned. I had lessons when I was young. I was 12-ish. Had 6 months of lessons, and it was fun. It was more of like a thing. My dad and I would go to this guy's. He had a little caravan, and like he'd teach you in his caravan, right? It must have been so pokey. And I did that for 6 months, but it was more like a father-son bonding thing. You'd go play golf or go fishing. And then I kind of lost interest for a bit because there was football and surfing and things I was kind of at the time I was more into. And then around 15 was when I really just found music. Like it was Soundgarden. Well, it was Nirvana first, then it was Soundgarden, and then my dad said that, well, if you like Soundgarden, well, you're going to like Led Zeppelin because there's a lot of ties there. It was the vocals of Cornell and Robert
Yeah.
Plant. So then I became obsessed with Zeppelin, and trying to work out those crazy guitar parts that Jimmy Page would do, not knowing that he was using different tunings and all kinds of wacky stuff. But like just
Yeah.
flubbing your way through,
Right,
trying to get.
right.
And then so went through those different phases, and then found Stevie Ray Vaughan, went into that, and then found Steve Vai and Joe Satriani had a little phase there, and like so you kind of get your chops together and you learn how to play some advanced stuff, and then started playing gigs and had some songs that we'd written, the brothers and I had written, and also threw in some covers. And you quickly realize, like, well, certain covers, like, oh my god, there's a dance floor, right? And then like girls would be dancing, like, and this is like three shy kids who had no idea how to talk to girls, and like you just be, oh wow, this is like gives me like people want to talk to you, right?
Yeah, some
So
confidence.
so that was an interesting thing, because you go from like here's the things I like just on my own, like I like Zeppelin and at the time Steve Vai and things like that, which are very technical. But then you go like then it hit me, oh, there's even more power in a song, and like it might be a Green Day song with like 4 or 5 chords, but oh my god, like there's so much power in that. Wonderwall, all these classics that were big at that time, and really like, oh, there's something even more exciting about songs than there's that technicality, and that's
Yeah, that's
kind of.
interesting because I was going to ask about that because it sounds like in the beginning it was you were kind of attracted to the like shredding guitar players, right? I
I
mean,
was I was like a wannabe rocker. Like I really loved heavy rock and Zeppelin and Rage Against. I love Rage Against the
oh, I
Machine.
love Rage Against the Machine too.
So one of my all-time favorite bands, Rage, Nirvana, Soundgarden, like just my all-time greats. Really got into that. But yeah, then I got into sort of more traditional songwriting, and then kind of went down that way.
Did your brother like are your brothers younger, older?
They're both younger, so I'm the
Both
oldest.
okay. And then did they pick up instruments probably like, oh, like or
Yeah,
Keith's doing this, I want to do that too.
yeah,
And
they
then do
did.
you all just start playing together like their
Yeah,
paths must have been different. Obviously, they play different instruments a
yeah.
little
So
bit, but
their paths were somewhat similar, but I was the first kid. I'm the eldest, so I got into music first, and then Steve started playing bass, and then we formed a few bands with local kids, like around our age, and you don't even know what you just know. Okay, I guess we need a drummer. I guess we need a bass player, and
yeah.
not knowing who was good and who wasn't, and what to really look for, but you just having fun, I guess. And then Michael was the last, Moxie youngest, and he
Yeah.
started playing drums, and he had this little rudimentary kit we made out of biscuit tins and bread racks, and like bread racks for cymbals and biscuit tins for snare, and he had a big block of wood for a kick drum with it. The only proper thing he had was a kick pedal, which was
Oh,
this
that's
cheap
awesome. That's cool. They used
hitting
a block of wood?
a block of wood, right?
Oh,
And then
wow.
he had and real sticks, but the rest of it was just all homemade like stuff. So and then we're like, oh, we got a drummer in the family, so we started playing gigs when we were in our teens.
Wow. And then at what point do you all start kind of I mean, it sounds like you were when you were doing these gigs and you'd play a song, you could sprinkle in your own original material as well, like when you were doing some
Yeah.
covers and some original things, and then
Well, there was a trap there that we didn't realize at the time. So we were playing like 50%, maybe more original songs, and that would have been crap. These are the first songs you write. They're not great songs, but you're playing that, and then you're playing some covers. And we started getting offered, paid gigs. We're like, hey, we'll give you $200, come and play our party, or $200, come and play this pub or something. And so we do that, but then you quickly learn that, like, if you want to keep the dance floor full, therefore the publican happy, the guy who's paying you happy, you got to play more covers. So
right.
then we got into this situation where it became more of a cover band, and just playing we were playing songs we liked, but they were just covers.
Yeah.
And it was a good schooling, because you learn how to put on a show, how to deal with hecklers, how to, if you have a bad night, what to do, if you break a string, what to do. But then it was a bit of a trap, because then the money became really good, right? So you're getting paid like $2,000 a night to play covers at at
Damn,
a
yeah, that
club or
is real
something.
good.
It
Yeah.
was really good, right? Especially when you're 19, 20, and you're earning $5,000 a week. It's like, man, I was earning more than some of my mates' parents.
I was gonna say, yeah, you probably live pretty large.
Yes. So and it was great, so that was good. But then it kind of dragged on, and then after a while, you get kind of jaded. You're like, well, I'm just playing other people's songs, and it's a bit of a dead end. So we kind of quit. We were like, we did that for years, and we all kind of got burnt out, and we're like, let's phase this out. So we were in the process of quitting all that, and I was studying architecture. I'd gone back to university, and then Trojans happened. I've spoken about it a lot over the years, but Trojans came along out of the blue. We had no idea that people would like it.
Yeah, it's
Put
like
it,
it was a massive. I mean,
put it,
obviously massive hit.
yeah, a massive song, and we had no idea. We all we knew was like, this is really good. We love this. We have no idea if anyone else will. Let's just put it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and so and we got so lucky though, because we got found on a blog. The blog went nuts, and everyone was, "Who is this band?" And we had a bidding war, and we weren't ready, man. We were just like, we were still kind of kids in a sense, because even though we've been playing gigs, we hadn't been touring America or anything, building up. We were just like playing gigs back in Adelaide. So
Yeah, and so you put it up on a blog, or it went on Triple J, right? That's kind of how it got really. Is
no,
that
I'm
or
not.
no? It's
No,
before that.
I'm not going to give Triple J any. Triple J
Oh,
actually
sorry.
became this. Well, I mean, look, they're never going to play us at this point. They didn't. They played it twice, and I think because we'd already
Oh,
started to get success in the States, like Jeffery and Alt Nation started playing it. Some of the regional like radio stations started playing it. And I think because we'd kind of skipped over to America, there was like a bit of a. I think we put them out or something, so they never played it.
wow, that's
They played it
interesting
twice.
because
Yeah.
this is another. So yeah, this is Wikipedia, dude, just getting me again because the Wikipedia writes that they kind of broke you, but that doesn't sound like the
Well,
case at all.
you can believe everything on Wikipedia. It's all 100% factual.
Ah,
They did well. Technically, right? We put the song up on Triple J, had an unearthed, like new music, unsigned
yeah,
bands
their
page.
website, right? But it didn't go to
So
like their countdown or anything, like that
no,
top
no, they never,
100 or whatever.
they never did that. No. So um, yeah, and that was always like this point of contention for us, because it's like you want to like you grow up with something, and even if you have success elsewhere, you're like, oh man, Triple J didn't play it, bastards.
Yeah, right, right.
But now whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, but so it did get found there, but then it was more America, then it kind of went to Europe and England as well.
Okay, so yeah, so because when it went on Sirius, that's when it,
Yeah,
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 that's when it like blew up. And then you said you got to be, then you're in a bidding war because people are loving this song. And I mean,
yeah.
I think that was like, we did a top 91 countdown on 91X every year. And I think Trojans was number one, I want to say, on our countdown.
Wow,
Yeah, like,
wow.
I mean, we played the hell out of that song.
I mean,
And
that song was, yeah. Sorry, continue, but yeah, it was.
no, I was just gonna say we played the hell out of it. I mean, and that just blows my mind that it wasn't, and I figured it had to be one, and that's
Yeah, I know, it's funny. A lot of my friends, in America and other parts of the world assume that it would have been a big song in Australia, but I mean, it got radio play on some of the commercial stations, but Australia's kind of different than America in some sense. Like here, you've got your 91X's and your K Rocks and your
yeah,
98.7s and all these different stations that they all come together, and that in a sense that like they all matter for new music. But in Australia, it was really only Triple J that was where people would go for the cool new music. And
okay,
if you wanted to hear like classic stuff, Sweet Home Alabama and like all that kind of stuff, then you go to the commercial stations. So they
okay,
either play like the real pop or the classic rock. But when it came to stuff that anyone below 30 would want to hear, you'd have to go to Triple J. So it's kind of like if you were on that, great. But if you didn't get played on that, then you're in no man's land. So that's where we found ourselves.
wow, okay. So then the song gets played in America, does well, and then that's when labels and people are probably reaching out to you. I would
Mm.
imagine, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
who's this band? Like,
yeah.
and then that overwhelming.
Yeah, it was. I mean, at the time, it's only upon reflection that you can get a bit more of an understanding of what you were going through. But it was exciting, daunting, scary. You didn't want to mess it up because you're like, I don't know what's happening, but I know this is not common. This is pretty great opportunity. What do we do? Like, okay,
Mhm.
we literally had 30 record companies come at us from all around the world, like every major in America, England, Japan, Australia, like everyone was contacting us. So you just don't want to fuck it up, right? Like
Right,
you're
right.
like, what do we do? Because like if we take too long making a decision, it might go away. we make the wrong decision, then but look, we made some good decisions, some bad decisions, I guess. Like you're trying to choose who's going to manage you, who's going to be your label, who's going to be your publicist and your booking agent, and yeah, I mean, in hindsight, there's things we would have done different. Some things we did, I think, were good choices. Some were not
Mhm.
so good. But
Yeah,
that's
you
life.
don't know it
That's
at the
life.
time, right? Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
trying to see, especially when it's all happening that quick, and you are kind of in that zone of like, okay, well, this song is killing it right now. Like, hopefully, we got to. You kind of have to strike while the iron's hot in a way.
Yeah, that's right. And for a little period, it kind of like we had all these people contact us, and then we were kind of umming and ahhing. It was about 3 months of like, what do we do? And I started to feel a bit of a panic, like, oh man, if we don't make a decision, like this is just going to go away. You know?
hmm
Yeah.
With I mean, then after that song does awesome. You must have y- not only that song, but you had a if so was a huge song for you guys,
Yep.
and then when you put out the next album, were you concerned at all about like where are we going to be able to like follow up what we had done before, or were you not even thinking that way?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I could lie and say, yeah, man, we didn't care what people thought, but that would be lying, because I mean, when you get to a point where, okay, now this is like a full-time thing. We're touring. That first record we toured for, I think it was 18 or 17 months, like a year and a half, just going around the world, right? America, Australia, England, Scotland, Germany, like Netherlands, like we were just everywhere. Um, it was amazing. It was a lot coming at us, but fantastic. And then it's like, okay, album cycle's done. Give us another one. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh, well, I haven't written anything. Like, I haven't had a chance. I mean, I maybe had written one song for that record. Not that I wasn't thinking about it, but I was just like, I didn't really have the time. And that was one of the most terrifying situations I've ever been in, I think. Just to kind of like, okay, now I've got a guitar. Like, what the hell do I want to write?
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially because you're like just having to like be in it, right, for so long. I mean, you're
Yeah.
touring for months, half a year, a year and a half, and then you get back and they're like, all right, well, okay, it's done. Now yeah, we need another album now. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay. Like,
And we had an inexperienced A&R guy from Warner Brothers who was piling on the pressure, which is not what you do to an artist. Like I also now I manage some artists, and I've luckily, because I've been through this, I know what you should and shouldn't do. And some of these guys that we were working with hadn't. We were like their first signing,
mhm.
and this one guy, and he just the pressure. Like I was like really like writing songs, but I wasn't happy with them, or I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. That's just who I am. And I remember, like I said, well, I don't know. I think the record's going to be done by the end of the year. I remember one conversation standing in a stairwell. He's like, well, that's not going to happen. The record's going to be done. I'm like, duh. Well, I can't just put it out if it's not done, dude. And so we had these people. Some of them were great. Some of them were terrible. Some were great people. Some, in hindsight, I would say not so great. But I didn't really have a mentor who was like, man, you do what you need to do.
Uh-huh.
You need to take the time you need to take. So it was a hard record to make. Yeah, it was a hard record to make. It just
I mean, but I mean, it still did well though. I mean, you were able to follow it up, right? It wasn't like you put the album out and no one cared. It was like at
well, I
least,
mean, look,
can,
I mean, that's an interesting topic. Like, I think we followed up reasonably well. The record came out, but then a year after it came out, Warner Brothers dropped us because it didn't go as big as
uh,
Trojans. Right? We had Molecules was the first single, and it got top 10.
yeah, we
But
played the shit out of that too.
yeah, and there was a song on there called Stockholm, which probably should have been the first single, but because it didn't reach, I don't know, whatever sales target they were expecting, we got dropped. So we had one of their biggest records of 2013, and the reward was see you later, and after
Oh
the next
man,
round.
of
So
course, right?
yeah, so that was not a fun day. I remember getting the phone call. Oh, no,
Yeah, at that
yeah.
point, are you like, what do we do? Like, we got to find a new label. Do we keep doing
Mm.
this?
It was very weird. Like it's like I guess it's like you're in a marriage and you've been blindsided by your partner. Like, oh yeah, I've met someone else, or whatever. I'm leaving.
Right? Yeah, you got to
It
get
was
out.
it was that kind of feeling. Like I didn't see this coming. What?
Right.
Okay. And so we toured a lot. We still toured that record the hell out of it for a couple of years.
Mhm.
But then and still writing songs for the third record, right? to this famous third record that just never came. And we had we'd done a lot of touring. We had different management, which they were a bit too hands off. I'm giving you this is like we're going honest here with this stuff, but so it's more of a cautionary tale, I guess. So
Love
the
it.
reason it took 9 years for this new record to come out, which came out today,
Amazing.
was basically a comedy of sort of situations. I look back now, and I can laugh at them now, but at the time. And so we toured a lot. We did an album that we scrapped,
Really?
which I just wasn't happy with. Yeah, yeah. So there's an unreleased third record. So technically, this might be the fourth record. And then I had an ex-girlfriend try to cancel me, and that, oh my god, one of the worst things you can
my
ever go
God.
through, because Me Too was happening, and I'd been, let's say I didn't transition from my previous relationship to another one the correct way, right? The correct way
Sure.
is you cut it off. So I was not a faithful partner at that time, and anyway, so she got wind of that, and someone else I'd hooked up with on tour once, kind of, they collaborated, and there's this whole campaign to try and cancel me. And it was during the whole Weinstein thing, and you're like,
Oh my
I'm just trying
gosh.
to I'm a nice person. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm just going,
Yeah, no one is, right?
but so I went through that, and and then you've got the
Jeez.
internet. So that was awful. And then, but then, we had all these songs that we were really happy with. Like, okay, we can finally make this third record. We've got the songs. We went back to Australia to record them. They were feeling great. It was almost all done. Almost probably 99%, 95% of the record was done when COVID hit.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, yeah. So that must, yeah, around 2019-ish at that point, I would imagine. Because I saw you posted because you recently played the it wasn't very super recently, maybe 6 months ago or something. You did a show at the
Yeah,
Rickshaw
four
Stop
months.
in San
Yeah,
Francisco.
about 4 months ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was, and that.
I worked at Live 105 in San Francisco, and I know Aaron. I don't know if Aaron's
Yeah,
still there, but he
yeah,
used to do
yeah.
Pop Scene.
So
And
he is.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
okay, yeah. So yeah, he used to run Pop Scene, and I saw that you guys played that, and
yeah.
it was like your first show back, right? It had since 2019 at that time.
First show since late 19. It was 4 and a bit years since between shows, and they were both actually coincidentally in San Francisco. That's
Were
just
they both? Oh, really? They were both in San Francisco. Were they both at Rickshaw Stop or no?
no, the 2019 show was a private show in San
Oh,
Francisco for a tech
okay.
company. It was like what it was? It was like playing a Silicon Valley event for
Ah, you're like, yeah, you're like at a Facebook like meeting or something.
yeah. What was the fake company in Silicon Valley?
Oh, shit. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember off
It
the top of
sounded
my
like
head.
Hulu, but it was like it was kind of like, was it like Hulu? Whatever it was.
Yeah,
It was like
no,
it
it
was
might.
like we were at one of those events, right?
That's so
Anyway,
funny.
but yeah, so that was our first gig back, and I tell you what, I don't think I'd been that nervous since the first gig when I was 19. It
Really?
was just, yeah, because so much had happened. The pandemic. There were years where I thought, man, I guess we're just not going to play anymore. That sucks. I love playing, but I guess that's kind of in my past. And then it worked out that we were able to come back and do that first show. And I was backstage just feeling nerves like I hadn't felt almost forever. But it was great. And then we stepped on stage. The crowd was beautiful. They were just really warm and loud. And I was like welling up, like in a way I don't think I'd ever done. So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
uh,
obviously that must have been so emotional, right? You're coming back out and it's like, whoa,
yeah,
all these nerves and then this
yeah.
crowd of people that love you. Okay,
Yeah, it was honestly one of my favorite career moments. We had lots of lovely moments, like playing on Letterman was just, well, that's one for the books. Playing Lollapalooza for the first time, those iconic things that you just hear about and never think you would do.
right.
But then coming back and playing that show, I just had this newfound appreciation for what we're able to do, and yeah, it was great.
That's amazing. Yeah, so okay, so then you go, yeah, you get back to Australia with these new songs thinking you're gonna make a record. and then the pandemic hits. And I know
Mm.
Australia got hit. Everyone got hit hard, but I had bands on that some of them were like you couldn't do anything for like literally like a year. Years you couldn't leave.
Australia was, I
Yeah.
don't know if I can swear, but on
You
this
can swear.
podcast,
Say whatever the fuck you want.
Australia was fucked. It was, I
Yeah.
mean, there were points where you couldn't leave your sort of little circle, like beyond 5 kilometer radius. And so, like, if you lived 6 kilometers from the beach, well, you weren't going to the beach for a long time. Um, you couldn't
Oh
see,
my
you know, if you
gosh.
had friends that were like, you know, in a different suburb or a different town, you weren't seeing them. So it was really tough. Um,
So yeah, so you're just what inside the house and you have these songs and how
mm.
are you coping? Are you able to record them yourself or like
Well,
what
they
are you
will.
guys
Well,
doing?
we always do record ourselves. Like we have a studio that we did that. The first record, Trojans, was done in that studio, and we went back and did the third
Oh,
record there.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So we
awesome.
were, yeah. So we were able to do that. But I mean, another situation we found ourselves in was that our label at the time didn't want to put the record out if we couldn't tour. And so from their point of view, I got that, but
Mhm.
like you got to see from our point of view, like we'd been sitting on these songs now for a couple of years, and we hadn't put a record out since 2015. So we're just dying to get a record out.
Yeah, you're kind of in
Um,
this weird limbo where it's like I want to put this out, but they don't want to put it out for us. So what do
yeah.
we you
So, so
can't
so
release music, but you want to release music.
yeah, and so there was a stalemate there, and we kind of it got, I wouldn't say hostile. It just kind of got passive aggressive, where it was like the emails were like, you know, few and far between. And then if we did correspond, it was kind of like, well, we can't really. We were at loggerheads. So eventually we got out of that deal.
Okay.
You know, good luck to them. But
Yeah.
um, and you know, yeah, I'm not going to say anything bad about them.
Sure.
I mean, the head of the label was always friendly to me. But yeah, so we got out of that,
Mhm.
and then finally did a new deal, and that's we're able to get the record out.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. So you said earlier when we were talking about the new album, you said a lot. Some of it was done. I mean, how much of the album that came out today were those songs from 2019 when you moved when you went back to Australia thinking you were going to record
Um,
it?
Everything except for "Falling So Hard," the first song on the record, that was done in our studio around 2022, I think.
Okay.
So our guitarist at the time, Dave, good friend of ours, he was back in LA, and we were just working remotely. And Michael would record drums in our studio. I'd play guitar. Dave played bass over there. And that was a real like sort of what would you call it? Like modern recording situation where you're working in two different continents. But pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah,
File
everything else,
sharing or whatever.
yeah, file sharing. Everything else was done prior to that.
Really? So you had the whole album was basically done and you were just kind of
Yeah,
sitting on it for that
yeah,
long.
yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. In the interim there, were you writing more and more songs or like did you know that
yeah.
the record was done and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna keep this here? Like, or what, or did you run into phases like, oh, well, maybe this will make the album. We can swap this song out, or did you not know that you didn't want to touch what you had already done aside from adding falling so hard?
I played with a few different songs that kind of almost made it. There was a couple of tracks that we thought were going to make the record, but then we kind of took off and put some others on. Um, but I knew it was pretty much done. Yeah.
Okay. So at that, I mean, what do you guys do when you're just kind of waiting around in that like in limbo phase?
I mean, good question. I mean, um, I started working with local bands. So there's some really talented bands. um, You know, like in any city, there's always talent.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, what's the real talent in this city? Because I was so disconnected because I'd been away for 10 years, so I didn't really know like what was happening in the local scene. Um, and so I started. Okay, so we've got a really nice studio.
Mhm.
So I'd record bands, only bands I was really, you know, kind of excited about. Um, so I'd bring them in and we'd record for a week and do that. And there was one band that a friend of mine was like, "Man, you got to check out these guys. They're just a little while before they'd won this Battle of the Bands thing. They're young guys." And I went to see a show, and I was like, "Oh my god, this band's amazing!" And the singer, like, just there's because we've been privileged to be able to be on this stage with a lot of literally the world's biggest bands, you know. And so
Yeah.
often you'd stand side of stage and you get to see like who's the real deal, like who's really, because sometimes it's smoke and mirrors, sometimes you know, and other times you're like that guy or girl just has that thing, that X factor that we're all kind of drawn to. And this band had it, and this singer was just like, oh my god, like a little bit Jeff Buckley, a little bit, I don't know, like a little bit of Billy Corgan, like just could scream on command, but like really could do the real subtle stuff as well. So so I took them into the studio. We did it like a live EP recording. I was like, no, I need to work with these guys more. Like I don't want this to just be it. So I offered to my brother and I, Mike and I, offered to manage them, and so we brought them over. So they've never been to America.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the singer's never been out of the country, and so this band's called Normal Behavior, and so they're actually doing the tour with us. They're going to open up the tour, so it's going to be us and Robert DeLong, obviously, but Normal Behavior is opening the show.
No way! I'll have to check them
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Normal
they're
behavior.
really
I'm gonna look at. I'm just gonna type it
yeah.
in my thing so I don't forget.
So so that's kind of the focus became, okay, well, we can't put our own music out right now. That's like, what else can we work on? Musically, who else can we help and who else can we work with?
Mhm.
So that's what I've been doing a lot of over the
Yeah, and
last
you
few years.
eventually, yeah. Well, you landed on this band, obviously, and you've done, yeah. So you were recording other people and kind of just mainly people though that were in South Australia.
Yeah, yeah. So a few bands like remotely, like an artist in Sydney and a few artists in LA and San Francisco, and just things that would come across my radar. But also just really like, because I think I really knew how hard it was to get out of that small little bubble that we were in, growing up in a
Mhm.
small town in a state that's not the biggest state by any stretch in Australia. Like, everyone knows Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth, I guess, to a lesser extent.
Yeah,
But Adelaide's like one of those cities that people, Adelaide, oh, I don't know if I've heard that. Heard of that
right.
place.
Because you
And
see people tour Australia, it's like 4, 5 dates, and you have to
yeah,
fly right into
yeah,
each. I mean, it's not like the easiest place to
it's
do it.
it's not like America where you can just drive, you know, a few hours and you're in another major city like
Yeah,
Philadelphia, Boston, you know, New
New
York.
York.
You know, you can't do that in Australia. You've got to drive like 10 hours to get to the next city. And then, like, once you've done 5 or 6 states, like you said, you've kind of done it. You're like, okay,
Right.
I guess we'll go back home for 3 months before we do the
Yeah.
next tour.
Right. Right.
And so, because I knew how hard it was to get out, and how much there is obviously talent. There's always talent, like I said, everywhere. But it's a real obstacle being so remote there that I thought, well, I want to help bands get out of there, because not to get out because it's not a great place, but I think there's talent that needs to be, the world needs to see this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There needs to be, more eyes can see. Yeah, especially if you're bringing them on the road with what you all are doing, playing all these cities here in the
Yeah,
states, and with you and Robert DeLong are, two legends, and they get to open up the show, and people get to be exposed to it. And I just
yeah,
found out about them now, which is awesome. And then everyone that's going to listen to this will figure it out. So I think
yeah, yeah,
that's so cool.
yeah.
Um,
They had a bit of radio play, like if, Ted Stryker was playing their stuff, and
oh, really?
yeah, and then
He's not on K Rock anymore, is he? Where is he at? Or is he still?
no, does a syndicated show that I think it's about 40 stations around the country.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah, so things like that. So we've got good friends. Like Ted's been a great friend of ours for ages, and Jeff Regan we've known. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. Regan's
Jeff
amazing.
broke the band. I mean, Jeff
Yeah,
is the reason I have a
yeah.
career.
That's yeah. Going back to XM, right? I mean, going
Yeah,
back to Sirius Alt Nation or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
man.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Um, wow. Well, so this is going to be your first real big, I mean, first tour, right? Since
yeah, yeah,
2019 or
yeah.
maybe,
I mean,
yeah.
first we did some shows in 19. The last sort of like proper tour would have been 2018. So I mean, yeah, it's the first proper tour in 6 years, really.
Excited? And you must be.
Yeah, I'm excited. That nervous energy you get when you're about to embark on something big. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you excited to hit the? I mean, travel city to city. That's probably been a minute since you've done that
I
too.
love that. I mean, that's one of the perks of the job is um, seeing places that you otherwise wouldn't go to, but then getting there and realizing it's as interesting as those usual holiday destinations, but sort of out of the way. I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
Well, I
mean,
can't.
one of my favorite shows. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No, no, no.
one of my favorite shows before I came to America was American Pickers. Right, I just loved the randomness of the places they would go to. You know the show,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
American
yeah,
Pickers,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the two dudes, they get in their van, and when we first started touring, we joke to each other like, "Oh, it's like we're American pickers now," because you're driving down some country lane on the way to like somewhere in Connecticut or something.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I can't. You're playing here in Nashville, which I'm excited about. I did see that. So you're doing the Basement East, which is such a rad venue. I love that place.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
can't wait. I'm gonna come check you out. You're here in October 1st, I believe. So
Yeah, I think you're
2
right.
weeks.
October 1st. Yeah, we are there. We realised we're not playing Halloween. We would have loved to have been playing on Halloween, but anyway.
Oh yeah, your tour ends before Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, are you guys still based in Australia? Or are you in LA?
We're based in Australia. I'm doing some work in LA, like production stuff here and there. So I kind of like the idea of coming back regularly because I love LA. Like I spent a lot of time living there. We were there for nearly a decade.
Yeah.
It's still like technically based in Australia at the moment.
Right on. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Keith, man, for doing this. I really, really appreciate your
Yeah, of
time.
course.
So fun.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
I have so much advice for aspiring artists, but what would be the one thing I would say
You can say
first?
multiple whatever you want to say. Floor is yours,
Um,
man.
I think as an artist, first thing I guess is finding your voice, which is like experimenting, listening to, like I was saying earlier, like check out the Spin Doctors if you want, but but like listen to it, like what really resonates with you. Like, what is it? Like, it might be Zeppelin, it could be Bjork, it could be Radiohead or AC/DC, Lana Del Rey, whatever it is, right? And it could be all over the place. And maybe you like orchestral stuff, but you also like electronic, or you really love like AC/DC's rock guitars, but you like, the Prodigy's drum production. Find those things and then try and find a way that where you can make something that is you. Like as an artist, like what I am is like it's these different things that I listen to over the years, right? And I really love the tone of that, and the vocal. Like I love the lyrics of say Benjamin Gibb at Death Cab for Cutie, like the way he would do it, or the rhythmic vocal style of Phoenix. Put that, like all those things, and then throw that all out, right? Take it all in, and then just write stuff, and then it will come to you naturally if you've really spent that time um, diving deep into different artists that do things for you. Then make your music and keep going until you feel like you've got some songs or a body of work that represents that, and then back yourself. Because no one in the industry knows what you're trying to do necessarily. Like, I mean, you can find mentors if you can who you think are good, but don't get pushed in different directions. Like I remember making the second record, and the A&R guy at the time who I mentioned was like, "Oh, you should put in some stuff like Flume. Flume's really big right now." I'm like, well, "Yeah, but if you listen to Trojans, like we're not, that's not us, man."
Does
Like that.
anything like Flume?
I mean, that's terrible. That's just terrible advice. That's like saying like you've got a boutique little sushi restaurant, and you're like, McDonald's is making a killing with nuggets, or KFC is making a killing with chicken nuggets, and you're like, yeah, but I mean that don't necessarily mesh, do they, dude? And
Right.
so there will be these people, and they'll be super confident, and they'll come to you, and as an artist, we tend to be more sensitive, maybe more prone to self doubt sometimes. That's maybe why we're drawn to it in the first place, and you want to express yourself, and you have moments of, I think this is good, I'm not sure. And so we are kind of vulnerable as artists to those people that will come up. There might be a label person or a manager, or it could be anyone who has that confidence, and they could be like a great business person, but they have no idea what necessarily, some will, but some won't, what makes you unique. And they'll try and push you in some direction because someone else had a hit. Like, Billie Eilish is doing this, so therefore you should do this. But it's like, well, maybe I'm a different kind of artist. As good as Billie Eilish is, I want to do this. And staying strong, because that's the hardest thing. I've had moments where I did, and those moments where I didn't trust my gut, where I was led down a different path by a record label or a manager or whoever, invariably it backfired. It wasn't the right move. And those times when I was like, we pushed the wrong single, and we pushed in a direction. Um, those are the times where I look back and I go, like, no, you were right. Trust your gut. That's the thing as an artist. That your best, your compass is like that feeling you get in here. And if someone comes to you with you've got a song you really like, and they're like, man, I don't know, man, those lyrics. If you're not sure about the lyrics, then by all means, like, go in and experiment and change it up a bit. But if you think, oh, this is what I want, then don't let someone else fuck with it. Beyonce's having hits with country music, but maybe that's not your thing. Just because it's hot right now. And also, I guess the final thing I'd say, and thank you for humoring me, is a great way of standing out when everyone's going this way is going that way, is going the opposite way, right? Like, or going in a slightly different direction. Because, like, right now, I think everyone's country's big, right? And I like country. The older I get, the more I like Three Chords and The Truth, right? I can really see the value in country like I maybe didn't back in the day. But if everyone's going that way, you're not going to stand out. Do your thing, like, just, yeah. What are the weird things about you? Like, maybe those weird things are what make you cool.
Bringing it backwards.